Let's see then how that the Nazis tried to gain control or influence over the churches, because remembering the problem with the churches from a Nazi point of view is this is going to create divided loyalties, isn't it? Because people won't know whether to support the church or the Nazis. So, Nazis believed in racial superiority, dominance of the strong over the weak, and they believe in violence. The church, however, believes in love, forgiveness, tolerance, respect, love thy neighbour. The goal of the Nazis was to make Nazism like a religion, with Hitler as the god. So obviously, church gets in the way of that. Now, in Germany, we have two different types of church, both Christian. You've got the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. So how does Hitler try to gain influence over the church, and how successful is he in doing that? Well, first off, you have the Concordat in 1933. This is an agreement between Hitler and the church, or Catholic Church. Hitler was determined to reduce the influence of the church because Catholics were loyal to the Pope and usually supported the centre parties of Germany. Catholics or Protestant Christians generally don't tend to vote for extremist parties. Children also went to Catholic youth groups, which is obviously a rival to the Hitler youth groups, because both of them want to indoctrinate people from an early age. In 1933, Hitler signed a Concordat which promised he wouldn't interfere the church and as long as the church stayed out of politics. Obviously, though, because it's Adolf Hitler, in 1934, Hitler broke the agreement and started to interfere with the church, removing crucifixes, and ultimately the Nazis took control of the Catholic Church. This causes friction later on, with Pope Pius XI publishing his mandate or his doctrine titled With Burning Anxiety, 1937. What the Nazis do now is they make the Catholic youth illegal and arrest many priests, meaning that more than 400 of these were put in a special block in Dachau concentration camp. Pope Pius XI wanted to avoid conflict with the Nazis, but had lost patience, so sent a letter to show his opposition. This was called With Burning Anxiety. Then you get examples of resistance. Saint Maximilian Kolbe. In July 1941, after a prisoner escaped from Auschwitz, the Nazis selected 10 men to die by starvation as punishment. One of the chosen men cried about the fact his wife and children would miss him and he would miss them, or he wouldn't see them again, rather. What Maximum Kolbe did was stepped forward and volunteered to die in the man's place. He was imprisoned in the starvation bunker, and what he does for the entire time is he simply continues to lead prayers and songs. After 2 weeks without food and water, the Nazis ultimately killed him with a lethal injection. This makes Maximilian Kolbe a martyr, and the problem with creating martyrs is it galvanizes opposition. So, the effects of all this are: Hitler believed this would destroy the power of the Catholic Church, but what it does have is the opposite effect. Priests in camps became martyrs, as mentioned earlier, and church leaders appearing in public were applauded. They're seen as hugely brave people. Catholic churches remain packed every Sunday, and the people are galvanized by the persecution against them, as in the fact that Hitler tries to crush them so much makes them more determined than ever to resist. Hitler's policies did not destroy the Catholic Church, they actually had the opposite effect. Concentration camp priests became martyrs, church leaders who appeared in public were applauded, and the churches were packed, as I've said already. Now let's move towards the Protestant Church. Now what's important here is the Catholic Church is smaller than the Protestant Church in Germany because of the influence of Martin Luther all those years ago, which you've studied in Year 8. So 2/3 of people in Germany were Protestant, making this the larger church because, as I mentioned, Martin Luther had created Protestantism in Germany. The Protestant church believes in love and tolerance, which opposes Nazi ideology. So in summary, the two are incompatible. So what you'll see now is a split in the Protestant church in Germany. First off, you have the Reich Church, can see their logo in the background. It's a swastika on a crucifix. Obviously, these are going to be ones who support the Nazis. Protestants supportive of the Nazis set up the Reich Church, and Ludwig Müller became the leader. They called themselves German Christians and followed the motto, the swastika on our chest and the cross in our hearts. The resistance to this comes in the form of the PEL, the Pastors' Emergency League. The PEL was set up by Protestants such as Martin Niemöller, who is shown here. They do not like the changes that the Nazis are trying to introduce, such as forcing regional churches to join the Reich Church and stopping Jews from becoming Christians. Effectively, they think that the Nazis are overstepping their remit. They shouldn't be getting involved with the church. They shouldn't be affording local churches to have to join the German national church, the Nazi church, the Reich Church. What you then get is they establish the Confessional Church. This is established by the Pastors' Emergency League. This is opposed Hitler and is supported by over 6,000 pastors or priests, whilst only 2,000 were in the Reich Church, or vicars, I should say, for pastors. That's what a pastor is. It's the person who runs the church. So this is supported by over 6,000 pastors, whilst only 2,000 were in the Reich Church, showing that possibly once again Hitler's attempts to reduce the power of the church, or rather destroy the church, are not as impactful. Martin Niemöller is one who resists. We'll come on to him in more detail when we look at resistance specifically. But he helped set up the PEL and led the Confessional Church. He was sent to concentration camps but survived and was released. He was actually kept as a personal prisoner of Hitler. Further resistance comes in the form of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a leading figure in the Confessional Church trying to resist Nazi influence. He eventually advocated tyrannicide. He says, Hitler is such a tyrant that whilst I'm against murder, it would be okay to kill him because, effectively it would be for the greater good. He is eventually executed due to his involvement in a plot to assassinate Hitler.